So I'm recording it. This is coaching framework number 2. We're recording the background music, and this is an alpha wave, and I'm seeking to bring up the sound, so make sure that I have input for the sound and for the phone. And I believe we have input, so I'm going to bring that down. And as far as the information on the screen, we're looking at this and we're talking about coaching. And so hopefully what is taking place is that we're looking at the coaching philosophy. We're looking at really the coaching philosophy, which is based on the 8 A's of transformation. And the 8 A's of transformation, and we're calling this a 8 A's of transformation, and it's an integrative emancipation framework. Integrative emancipation coaching framework. So, and it says coaching, first of all, is based on a relationship of trust, respect, and honesty between the coach and the client. One of the theories that I use is transformative learning theory. That's an adult learning theory developed by Refusal in 1975-1978, where Refusal was watching his wife go back to school after she had been out for a long period of time. She was going back to college, and as a result of going back to college, school had changed since she had been out. And that theory that he developed as he watched her adjust back to that lifestyle that she needed to adjust back to, he developed that theory in 1975, 1978, and then it's been refined since that time, which is a period of about 50 years, perhaps a little more than 50 years when we calculate that. And this is 2019. And then is one of the most researched theories that there is. And it recognizes that adults, when they enter into a relationship, they have some knowledge, some wisdom gained from past experience. And this is vital to a coaching relationship. The coach and the client are entering into a relationship, and it requires mutual trust, respect, and honesty. That is foundational. That would be understood. It's foundational that it's understood. And secondly, the coach and the client must agree at the onset of the relationship that there is a gap, a distance between the current reality and the reality that, should it be fully impacted by the force of the potential currently residing within the client, that there must be a set of agreed upon outcomes. So there must be something that the client wants to achieve. There must be something. Whether that is an outcome that is a goal that the client wants to achieve, an outcome which will express potential demonstrated or realized. So the client has a potential. There's something they're seeking to bring about, and then the coach is to assist that client in bringing that potential, realizing that potential, and that the outcomes are going to demonstrate what that potential is. So it's not therapy that the client is involved with. A coach is not a therapist. The coach is a coach, and the outcomes demonstrate that which they are seeking to do, which is actually being kind of bottled up within, and the coach is to bring that forth, to help that client to realize that outcome. And so that's what's the gap, is what is between where the client is presently And then the outcome is where the client will be when the coaching has achieved the outcome. And so that's what's involved there. And thirdly, the client is seen as a part of a system or part of a team, if you will, if you want to do it that way. Whether the system is the client as an individual or as a part of an organization. It is vital that the client is able to understand the various parts of a system and how they interact one with the other in order to effect change on the entire system or for the system. It's important. The important part of this is for the client to understand how he or she interacts with the system and how the system interacts with him or her. So it's vital that they understand that they have a role to play within a system, whether an organization or whether a community group or whether a team, whatever it may be, they are part of the system. And the first thing is that they understand that they are part of a system and that the way they act impacts the system and the way the system acts impacts them as an individual. As a result of that, the fourth is that in order to gain an understanding of the interactions as stated in the third item above, various surveys, focus groups, questionnaires, tests will be conducted and will be conducted by the coach with the client and with the various parts or members of the organization or system to which the client is associated. So the client is responsible for providing and obtaining the necessary permissions with the organization for such to take place. That's vital as well. And fifth, the coach will gather the feedback from the various sources, primarily as a way to inform the client about his or her interaction with him or herself, and so that he or she can gain greater awareness and greater self-knowledge. It's about his or herself. And so sixthly, the coach and the client with the outcomes previously agreed upon and the now more informed view of the client, skills, knowledge, desires, goals, abilities, traits, character, and discipline practice can agree on the client's level of intended accountability of being, doing, and having that which she has aspired to. So at this point, we have an understanding of how we move forward and what is involved in that moving forward in order to reach the goals that have agreed upon. And so seventhly, at this point, learning on the part of the coach and client is vital to the relationship. For what unfolds may be totally new and unexplored as what has never before been seen, or never before known in this person, or as this person comes forth in our expression. In other words, the person could become a totally new individual. The techniques, tools, and trainings of the coach emerge in order to bring forth the steering of the ship or engineering of the orchestration of design to ensure the developmental discovery and emergence of the evolved and empowered individual agreed upon actualizes. So that person may emerge as a totally new person, a totally new individual, new capabilities, all of this. That person comes forth in order to realize the outcome. That person may emerge in regard to that. New capabilities, new abilities. The coaching philosophy of Dr. Dennis L. Waters Sr. is based on this process of a journey of discovery effecting such an actualization. So that's what we're working with. Now, there are other coaching frameworks that are within this. One of them is the idea of GROW. GROW was developed by Graham Alexander, and then it was popularized by Whitmore. And it was talked about in books by Cox in 2006 and by Grant in 2011. And it's about facilitating individual coaching sessions. And the mnemonic GROW stands for goals, reality, options, and wrap up. And wrap up could also be will or way forward. So that's the way to look at that. And this is research that I've done and paper that I've written in regard to that. And so the goals, you identify what you're moving forward. What are the goals? What are you seeking to do? And you want to make sure, in order to ground the coaching session down and to make sure that we have agreement as to what we're doing. And then the reality stage of component is about the present state of things. So that, again, we are able to look at what is taking place right now in this moment. What does it look like? The awareness of the client of things as they are now in this moment. And that we have an understanding, where do we want to go again? Then how are things right now? What's the difference between where we are right now and then where do we want to go? Same we said before. And then the options is intended to be a brainstorm. Like when we look at the place where we are, when we consider where we're going, then we brainstorm. What are the possible ways to get there? What can we do? How can we solve this? How can we realize this? How can we bring about what we intend to do? And then the wrap up, we decide on a plan of action. So as we move forward, we come up with various ways by which. And so we go at it in regard to that. So that's the grow. And then there's a discussion about a regrow, where we have a refining or review and evaluation of that whole process as we come and have discussions at another time. And we review that. There's another item that is called the developmental pipeline. Developmental pipeline, we go through a process again. We look at 5 different components of that. What have we learned? Insight. And then motivation. How's a person motivated? The capabilities, real world practice, and accountability. This is talked about by an individual named Peterson. And so insight in this pipeline includes the coach's understanding of what areas in his or her life needs development. So this whole aspect, again, that we were talking about, the development of the individual. Because when you look at it, if you remember in this whole process of coaching, there was a book that was done, I believe the year was 1989 perhaps, that the book that was done called The 7 Habits of Highly Effective People by the individual named Stephen Covey. And he talked about this aspect of seeing your life in such a way that it was like you had a ladder that you were climbing, and it was leaning on the top of a building. And you climbed up the ladder, and then you got to the top and realized that that's not the building you wanted to be on top of. Well, you want to make sure that when you're doing life, that you are in the place where you want to be at the end of your life. And in order to do that, you need insight. What are the areas in your life that needs to be developed while you're living? Because you can't do that really when you're dead. And so what needs to be developed as you move forward in life? And that's more than just simply achieving goals. More than just simply achieving goals. And so insight, and then motivation. How much time are you willing to invest? How much energy are you willing to invest? How much of your resources for the development of yourself are you willing to invest? And then when it comes to capabilities, when it comes to your knowledge, your skills, your abilities, your experience, and other personality characteristics, how much are you willing to invest in that? In your growth and development? What do you really bring to the table of life? What's involved with that? In real world practice, when it comes to this, if you're in one place and you want to get to another place, what has been your experience in regard to the skills that you need in order to accomplish the goals you have in mind? What has been your experience? And then when it comes to accountability, there are things that are internal to you, things that are external to you. What's your level? What's your willingness to be accountable to those things that are internal, those things that are external? What is your willingness to be accountable to that? And which one will have the greatest level of accountability to you? What will you do? And so when it comes to the 8 A's, we go about these things in different ways. And the 8 A's are actually triangulated, as we said, to different theories. Transformative learning theory, and then also the hero's journey theory. Let me talk about one of the A's. And one of the A's is the A of awareness. The A of awareness. And we begin with the 8 A's, and then we'll tell you how it is related to Measures steps in transformative learning theory. Let me show you the picture that we have that has the various A's. This is a picture that we've developed that shows the 8 A's triangulated to the 2 theories, the hero's journey and also to the transformative learning theory. And in the red here, we have the awareness. And it says awareness of present world and awareness of possible world. Remember, we were talking about the aspect of where you are presently, the reality, and where it is that you want to go. And then we mentioned forms of awareness. We talk about other intelligences. Emotional intelligence facilitates self-awareness, and then critical reflection of values, of beliefs, and of assumptions. So those are the things that we talk about when it comes to awareness. There are various forms of awareness. And what we want to do is facilitate this aspect of self-awareness first. Self-awareness. How do we facilitate that? Well, we actually have surveys and tests whereby you can actually go through a process where you take the surveys and it will give us insight as to the individuals, the executives, or the person taking this particular item as to their awareness, their self-awareness, their other awareness. There's surveys and tests for emotional intelligence in this day and time. Again, and other intelligences, so that an individual gains some understanding, so that we have a starting point for that. And then there are questions that we can go through with an individual so that there can be critical reflection on their values, on their beliefs, on their assumptions, so that we're clear and we have a baseline by which a person can understand their own values, their own beliefs, their own assumptions. Now, how does that work when it comes to transformative learning theory? Or how does that work in regard to the hero's journey? Well, story form, first of all. In the story form, in the hero's journey, there is what is called a call to adventure. And a call to adventure happens really at the point where the world, the individual, the protagonist world, is upset. And the place that I like to reference is the call to adventure in a picture like the hero in the Star Wars movie, the original Star Wars movie, which is so many years ago, the Star Wars movie. And you may remember that Luke Skywalker received the call when a droid, CP3PO, I think it is, no, C2D2, R2D2, showed up. And he has a message. And in order to get that message to the individual that it was sent to, which was Obi-Wan Kenobi, the droid went, and then Obi-Wan Kenobi said to Luke Skywalker that he needed to go and really save the world by fighting the Empire. And initially, and that was his call to adventure. You need to go fight the Empire. He had been working on the farm that belonged to his uncle, and there's immediately a refusal. He says, this is not what I want to do. This is not what I'm supposed to do. So he got the call. He says, no. And that's the second step in the hero's journey. You can check this out. You can look this up. Second step in the hero's journey. He says, no, I'm not going. But then that is called the refusal of the call. That's the second step. I refuse. I'm not taking this. I'm not up to it. It's not what I'm supposed to be doing with my life. And so he refuses. And then he goes back home and he finds out that home is no more. His uncle's farm and his aunt's farm has been burned, and so have they. They have been burned. They have been killed. And then he accepts the call. So there is in transformative learning theory what is called a disorienting event. Disorienting event. And what happens there is that, again, your world is disoriented. Is not as it was before. And you can see how this was a disorienting event for Luke Skywalker. Is that as a result of that, that he now accepts the call, because home is no more. He now comes to know himself differently than he did before. He's ready to go fight. And this is an awareness. This is what is meant by an awareness. The present world is now different from what he thought it was. It's now different. He becomes self-aware. And as that unfolds, emotions come forth. He becomes aware of possible worlds. He becomes aware of other intelligences. All of this begins to unfold. So that's how this is triangulated. He becomes aware of his values, his beliefs, his assumptions. All of this begins to unfold. How does that relate to an executive? Well, there are many things that open our eyes. Let's do another movie. In the movie The Wizard of Oz, if a person looks carefully, they will find that the same people who were in Kansas were the same people who were in Oz. The Scarecrow, the Cowardly Lion, and then the Tin Man are the same people who worked on the farm in Kansas. But it was when Dorothy was in Oz, or in that land, that she finally understood the value of those individuals. The same is true in the movie Transformers. And that's what was meant by they are more than meets the eye. When you become aware, it's not aware only of what's inside of you, like Luke Skywalker. He begins to understand that he has capabilities, but it's also of those around you. When you are faced with a crisis in a company, competition comes, you need to develop a new component or a new skill or a new vision comes forth. You discover that there are people within your company that have skills and tools and ideas and all of this stuff that needs to be developed. They were there all the time, but there was no real need for them. That's a level of awareness. That's a level of emotional intelligence. And so again, that's what executive coaching is about. That's how it's applied. And each of the 8 A's and this entire journey is about that. So this is what we do as executive coaching. This is what the 8 A's is about. This is how we triangulate it. And we have tools and techniques. We do journals. We do writing assignments. We do whatever is necessary in order to bring forth these particular skills from within the individual. Because we're confident through knowledge, through experience, through learning, that these tools are within the individual, within the executive. We call the awareness transpersonal awareness. As I said, we have tools and techniques. We check you before we actually go on the journey, and we check you after. We have tools, tests, surveys that we use. Some we develop ourselves, and then others we use them in concert with tools that have been previously developed. So this is a science that we are working with as well. Bless you for now. Bless you always. we'll close this down. Take care.